Hey everyone, it's Marianne from the New York City Organization of Public Service Retirees. I want to have a conversation today regarding what's happening with the unions, the umbrella organizations like the Central Labor Council, the MLC, the AFL-CIO, New York State. This is really important because unions are part of these umbrella organizations, and it is important that they recognize that their participation in a message or an advocacy carries some weight with it, and it comes with a responsibility. So I want to get into a little bit of that today as well. But this is also a call out to Mario Cilento from the New York State AFL-CIO, Vinny Alvarez from the New York City Central Labor Council, Henry Garrido from DC 37 MLC, Harry Nispoli from the Sanitation Workers Union, also MLC. Michael Mulgrew from the United Federation of Teachers, also MLC. Greg Floyd, Local 237 Teamsters, MLC. As well as Gloria Middleton, Local 1180, also MLC. Now, those five people, I call them the MLC 5. Those are your executive directors, your president, vice president, I think secretary, treasurer. So these are all of those titles. When you see on the MLC letterhead in blue, those are your top 5. So Harry, Henry, Michael, Greg, and Gloria. So what was disturbing about 2 weeks ago was that those MLC 5 wrote a letter on MLC letterhead, and they incorporated the New York State AFL-CIO as well as the Central Labor Council, Mario Cilento and Vinny Alvarez, as well as I think 15 other unions. That were all private sector, by the way, not public sector unions. I think 2 of them have a small public sector component, but the majority of them do not, which means that they are not covered under the New York State Taylor law. They are not covered under New York City collective bargaining. And Intro 1099, the little 2-sentence bill that we are trying to advocate for, that we had sponsored by Councilman Charles Barron, doesn't affect them either. And this is why this is like super, super important. Because they are injecting themselves into a conversation on the wrong side of the conversation, and they're doing it out of loyalty, not competency, not understanding of the issue. Because if they understood the issue, they would be on this side, and we're going to get into that. So what is collective bargaining? Collective bargaining was codified in law under the Taylor law, as well as New York City collective bargaining law, which it does several different things. There's several components to it, but the one part of it that's what we're going to discuss here is, what can a union bargain for? Who can they bargain for? What gives them that power? Well, the law gives them the power to collectively bargain for those in their unit. Who is in their unit? Those are the dues-paying members that are active employees in specific titles that union is authorized to collectively bargain for. And what can they collectively bargain for? Anything to do with wages, hours, and work conditions. Well, retirees are not employees. We are not employed. We do not have an employer. We are not an employee. We are not a dues-paying union member. And we do not have wages, hours, and work conditions. So knowing that is what the unions have the power to do, they cannot bargain for someone who's already retired, because we are not employees, we are not union members, and we are not in their bargaining unit. So they cannot collectively bargain for us. This is what was disturbing when our former unions were trying to take away a retiree's healthcare benefit and the public healthcare benefit of Medicare, because they should never have tried to do that. And I think that they were misled by several different attorneys, and that's another issue I want to discuss, because they did this thinking that there would never be any pushback and no one would fight back. Why? Because traditionally, retirees are not really an organized group like in a union, and would not have really known what was happening, because we're not paying attention to what the unions are doing or labor relations. But that is what a union can do. That is the power that it has is it has the power to collectively bargain or negotiate for those people for in their unit for wages, hours, and work conditions. What they did in this situation is they tried to bargain away a benefit that was owned by someone not in their unit and use the value of that in their collective bargaining. Unions cannot bargain for current retirees. They can bargain for their active workers who will be future retirees. And never would a union have ever diminished a benefit for a retired person or their future persons. So you have to ask, why would a union be negotiating away or diminishing a benefit that they currently have, that our generation earned and paid for? Never would that have happened. Why is that happening now? I think it's a failure on their part in their ability to negotiate and bargain, and they don't want to recognize that or acknowledge it, admit it. And we understand that some of those things are difficult, but this is where I think they got caught up in a moment where someone sold them something, they bought into it, they recognized maybe at some point that what they were buying into was wrong. But still right now, they don't want to admit that it's wrong. So they're going to continue to push the big lie. The other issue is the advisors that they're using. Most of them are all using the same lawyers, Strzok and Strzok, Alan Klinger, Harry Greenberg. Why are they all using the same attorneys? If you have 2 attorneys or 3 attorneys all being used by the same union, and then you have an issue where the unions are not in alignment, what happens? How can that attorney adequately argue to protect you or argue for you to protect yourself when they're at the same time representing another union with an opposite interest? They can't. In the interest of the MLC, they have 2 lawyers, Harry Greenberg and Strzok Alan Klinger. Alan Klinger ends up being the attorney for the United Federation of Teachers, the MLC, some unions in the district council, the sanitation workers. This is a conflict of interest, because if the other unions are against them, then he has that knowledge, that attorney has that knowledge from that union to use while he's representing other unions against you. Unions need an attorney that would fiercely defend their members, not have these conflicts. And you also have to ask, why are unions paying the MLC dues to have that dues money used in amicus briefs or in motions against other union members? The MLC paid the Strzok and Strzok firm last year over $800,000. They paid Harry Greenberg's firm on a retainer of $60,000. Meanwhile, Strzok and Strzok represents several other unions, as does Harry Greenberg. So if there's a union wanting to fight against this MLC issue where they were forcing their future workers or their current retirees into Medicare Advantage, then the arguments that they would be given back by that union would be knowledgeable to that attorney to be used against the fight against them from the other unions that they represent. That is a conflict of interest, and no union should be sharing the same lawyer. The only ones getting rich in that is the attorneys. Well, not Harry Greenberg because he's on retainer, but Strzok and Strzok is making millions. From each of these lawyers, each of these unions, just keep looking on their LM2 reports, which is like a 990, it's like a tax return for every union. Look at who's getting rich off of the fighting against the unions. Each other, the lawyer. So that was one issue. The other issue is I want to ask every one of these MLC 5s, how is it, and also all the active union members, do you know that your union is advocating to force upon retired workers and your future retiree benefits Aetna Health Insurance, which is a non-union company, at the expense of Emblem Health, who is union? OPEIU 153 represents Emblem Health employees. And if they are successful at privatizing Medicare or health benefits, the entire city health program, which is what they're trying to do right now, because right now the final 2 bidders for the active worker plan is Emblem Health and Aetna. If your union chooses Aetna, They have just privatized the city health program at the expense of union labor, OPEIU 153, which could potentially put Emblem Health out of business as well as union workers. Are you okay with that? Because we're not. We keep saying we're labor. We keep saying we're union, even though we're retired. The union mantra is in solidarity. Be in solidarity and don't privatize your healthcare programs. Push back on your union leadership. Why? Because the union members are the union, not misguided union leaders trying to do the wrong thing because they made the wrong deal. And why is that? In this situation, you have the MLC, which is an umbrella organization, the Central Labor Council, which is an umbrella organization, and the AFL-CIO, which is an umbrella organization. How do those organizations stay in power or abuse their power? That's because all of the unions under them pay a dues to them. Mario, Vinny, the MLC couldn't exist without union loyalty. So it's a quid pro quo back and forth. Mario couldn't stay in this position if all the unions under them didn't pay dues to them and do whatever each other needed. This MLC letter that came out on August 24th, all signed by vice presidents of the Central Labor Council, who are private unions not affected by any of this. The ones we spoke to didn't even know what this was about, said that they only signed on to that letter because Henry Garrido asked them to. Loyalty out of a union brother. Henry asked me to sign on to this and said that the city council was interfering with their collective bargaining. That's why they signed on to that letter. They didn't know the issue. They didn't even read the darn bill, which is 2 sentences long. And they all want to think Councilman Barron's crazy. And so are we for doing this. Why would we be working against ourselves? And then you've got Gloria Middleton yesterday, who's a treasurer of the MLC, who's the president of Local 180, CWA, communication workers who are in most agencies in New York City, telling her active members to call the council to speak out against 1099, our 2-sentenced intro that requires the city to provide a Medigap plan preserving traditional Medicare, which unions helped found, by the way. And why would they do that? You're asking a union worker to advocate against their future, diminishing their own benefit. All the while, the MLC is right now negotiating down for 10% cuts in healthcare, potentially passing more costs on to the active worker. Why would you do that? These union leaders owe an explanation to their dues-paying members as to why they're allowing this to happen. And you know why they're abusing their power? Because they don't want to go back to rank and file labor like we are. They don't want to go back to the street, back to pushing garbage, back to teaching in the classroom. Why? Because they're all making 6-figure salaries in the $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 ranges. And the last thing they want to do is take a demotion back to the titles that they started into, making the pay that they negotiate for us. So that's how they abuse their power to keep staying where they're at. So you have to ask, why are we here? And it's because the MLC violated the law. They broke the law. They broke Administrative Code 12-126. Retirees organized, fought back, went to court, and we won. They broke the law again. We went back to court. We won again. Then they tried to intimidate the council with a sham arbitrator's report. Then they tried to get the council to change the law that we won on, again abusing their power. This is what they did. They don't belong in power. They broke the law, broke it repeatedly. We kept winning. You have to ask, why would a union want to fight against their own retired people? Because the people that they represent will be retired. But they don't want you to know that they sold off the value of our health benefits to use in their collective bargaining processes because they didn't have the ability to adequately negotiate. We then introduced 1099 after the council refused to take up their intro 874, which was going to create different classes of individuals who had different levels of benefits depending upon what you could afford and what you couldn't. Thank God the council listened to us. And then we introduced Intro 1099, a 2-sentence bill that requires the city to provide a Medigap plan so we can keep our Medicare. And the second sentence says nothing in this bill will impair any of the unions from collectively bargaining for any of those in their units. None of it impairs their collective bargaining, yet it's the big lie that they keep spreading. You need to wake up and pay attention. And then, of course, we hear that the MLC or the CLC, Vinny Alvarez, the AFL-CIO, Mario Cilento, don't want to get involved in this fight after they already invoked themselves in it because they don't like me, or they don't like our messaging, or they don't like how I'm fighting this fight. So what do we have to say to that? We fight this fight the way they taught us to. You don't like the message because you don't like the truth. We could fact check and prove everything we've said for 2 years. You broke the law. We won in court. You broke the law again. We sued again. We won in court. You tried to change the law. We won the case on. You tried to intimidate a legislative body. We keep winning. It's not because we're doing something wrong. You're on the wrong side of history. Henry, Harry, Michael, Greg, Gloria, Vinny Alvarez, Mario Cilento. You will be complicit in destroying labor if you let it be known that a union person can be paying a dues in loyalty to their union their entire careers. And once they're retired, you will take away what they slaved and earned and paid you dues to negotiate and use for active workers at their expense. That's not union, and that's not labor. In this instance, gentlemen, ladies, I need to tell you, take your lesson from the retirees and stand in solidarity with us and get on the right side of this movement. You do not strip away a benefit from a retired person. You do not diminish their health benefits, especially at this age of stage of their lives. And you do not negotiate away health care. This is the right side of labor. This is the right side of history. And in the words of Victor Gotbaum, Victor would rip anyone's heart out whom he felt was going to harm one of his members. The retirees organization stands in solidarity with their members and the unions that are supporting us. These umbrella organizations need to have a closed door meeting and get on the right side of history. Because even Mr. Haber from OLR back in the day when Victor was around knew not to mess with Victor's people. You do not mess with retired union labor. We are retiree strong. We are labor strong. We will defend what we earned and paid for in our retirement, and we will also defend the public health benefit of Medicare. Get on the right side of history. The world is watching.